In this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about how to use selective sync when saving items to your Divi library. Now, you'll notice whenever you add a new module to your library, there's going to be an option called Selective Sync, where you can choose certain settings to be saved for that particular library item. For example, if I wanted to save this blurb to the library, and I opened up the blurb settings and clicked Save and Add to Library, you're going to see Selective Sync here, and there's going to be three options to include General Settings, Advanced Design Settings, and Custom CSS Settings. Now, you'll notice that these three settings correlate to the three tabs that you find in all of your module modal setting pop-ups. So if I go back to my blurb settings, you'll see these same three tabs here, and that's what those selective sync options are referring to: the general settings, the advanced design settings, and the custom CSS settings, which each has a different purpose. General settings typically have the content of the module. For example, when I'm editing this blurb, if I want to modify the actual text that appears in the title, if I want to change the URL that the title goes to when clicked, if I want to adjust the icon, and so on, that's all in the General Settings tab. And if you want to get a little bit more specific with your design customization, you can move over to the Advanced Design Settings and do things like adjust the header font, adjust the font style and size, letter spacing, line height. There's really nothing you can't do inside the Advanced Design Settings, so there's lots of options here. And then finally we have the Custom CSS tab, which can be used for the same thing, the same purpose as the Advanced Design Settings, but instead of using our custom Advanced Design Setting controls, if you're a web designer, web developer, and you prefer just to get your hands dirty with CSS instead, well, what we've done in the Custom CSS tab is laid out all of the structural elements of the blurb module in this case, and you can just type in your custom CSS here. And yeah, that's the three settings tabs that you'll find in every single module that you edit with Divi. And when you save an item to the library, you can choose which tabs you're actually saving for that library item. So, for example, let's take a look at one of these blurb modules on this page. So I'm going to head over to the page and take a look at what I built here. So I have a row here, and it has 3 columns and 3 blurbs. Now, let's say for this particular homepage layout, I want to do something a little bit more custom with these blurbs. I want to dig into those advanced design settings and really customize the appearance here. So what I'm going to do is load up the blurb and start customizing these settings in these 3 tabs here. And the reason I'm doing this is so once I have customized all these 3 tabs, I'm going to show you how syncing only certain tabs can be useful when saving items to the library. So I'm going to go over to the Advanced Design Settings here. I'm going to use a custom icon size and make the icon a little bigger. I'm going to make the header bold. I'm going to make the header a little bit larger. I'm going to choose a custom text color for the header. I'm going to bump up the letter spacing a little bit. And then I'm going to choose a color for the body font. I'm going to give it a background color, so I'm going to give it a purple background color. And since I'm assigning a background color to this blurb, I'm also going to give it some padding so that there's some space between the text and the edge of the module. So I'm just going to give it some custom padding here on the top, bottom, right, and left. And then I'm going to go back to the general settings. I'm going to put the icon on top. And I'm going to center the text, and I'm going to save. So let's look at what I've created here as I have dug into the advanced settings a little bit. So I'm going to refresh this page and take a look at our customized blurb. So you can see here, this blurb is looking a lot different. I've turned it into a box, a purple box. I've centered all the items inside. I've made the header text a little bit bigger, increased the line spacing, and so I'm really starting to give this blurb a completely different and unique look from the rest of the blurbs on the page. And I'm also going to assign an icon color here, which I forgot to do. And I'm going to delete these other blurbs and duplicate this one across here. And refresh the page and try to show you the look I'm trying to achieve here. So now I have 3 blurbs. I've turned them into these boxed blurbs. Changed the icon and the text color to white. And like I said, I've really spent a lot of time customizing these advanced design settings. Now, let's say I would like to save this item to the library and use it in the future. Well, I can do that by clicking Save and Add to Library from within the Settings modal pop-up. And when I do this, I can choose to only sync, in this case, the advanced design settings, since really that's where I spent all my time customizing. And every time I add a new blurb, it's unlikely that I'd want to use the same exact title text and body text and icon font. In fact, I'm most definitely going to change those things. So why not just sync the advanced design settings, which is the only thing I really want to have when I load this library item onto a new page. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call it block blurb. I'm going to save it to my library. And now if I head over to my library and look for that new block blurb module item, it's right here. Now if I were to edit this, you're going to see that only the advanced design settings appear when I try to edit the module. And so, yep, that's the only thing that's actually being saved for this particular library item. And now if I load this new library item onto a page, all those advanced design settings are going to be populated, but all the general settings are going to remain blank, just like I was adding a new module. So I won't have to bother deleting the old stuff that I really don't need for my new page. So I'm going to add a new page to show you how to add that new library item. Click Add New. I'm going to use the Divi Builder. I'm going to load a layout. And then I'm going to get rid of these blurbs and add my new blurbs that I just saved. So I'm going to insert from library. So click Insert Module and choose Add from Library. And then locate that block blurb that I just created and load that in. And you'll see that the advanced design settings has all been saved, and my general settings they're still a clean slate, so it's a little bit easier to start from. Now let's take that a step further and talk about global modules. And this is where selective sync really becomes even more useful when you combine selective sync with global modules. So let's say I have a Fullwidth slider here, and on all my pages I have this slider at the top of my page. And I've spent a lot of time customizing the advanced design settings for that slider. Let's say I've changed the header font, I've changed the header text size, the font styling and all that. Maybe I've customized the button too to make it stand out a little more. And I've decided that every time I add a new slider to my page, I want to use those same styles, and I don't want to have to modify them every time I add a new slider. And if at any point I decide to change one of those styles, I don't want to have to go back to every single slider on every page of my site and change all those settings. That's a big waste of time. So what we can do is save that slider as a global module and only selectively sync the advanced design settings. And so what does that mean? You now have multiple sliders across all of your pages with different slide content, different slides, but you've synced the advanced design settings across that series of global modules. And so anytime you edit that global module and edit the global advanced design settings tab, every single global module is going to be updated with those new styles, but you're able to use unique content on every single page. So that's incredibly powerful, incredibly useful, especially when you're trying to create a unique look for your entire site and want to be able to edit that look with just a few clicks. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to edit this Fullwidth slider, and like I said, I want to change some things about this slider. I want to give the header a bigger font size. Actually, yes, I'm going to give the header a larger font size. Let's bump it up a lot. I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to give it a new font as well. So let's find an interesting font. I am going to reduce the padding. So I kind of want to make my sliders a little bit shorter, since I'm going to be using them on all my pages. So I'm just going to reduce that padding a bit and change this to 200. And let's see what else I want to do. I can also customize the buttons. So let's enable custom button styles for this slider. I'm going to bump up the text size a bit. I'm going to change the color to white for the text color. I'm going to give it a green background color. I'm going to change the border width to 0. I'm going to bump up the border radius. What this will do is make the button a circle instead of a rounded rectangle. I'm going to increase the letter spacing a little bit. I'm going to change the icon color to white as well. Okay, so that's just about do it. I've customized this slider quite a bit. I've created a new look for my slider, and that matches my vision for the website. And like I said, I'm creating this slider because I want to use it on several pages. So a lot of my pages will have a slider on the top, and I want to create a unique style for those sliders. Okay, the page is loaded up. And as you can see, here's the slider that I customized. I created a different looking header, added a different font, made the text a little bit smaller, made the button bigger, made it green. And so I'm happy with this look. This is the look I'd like to use on all my pages. But like I said, I only really want to sync those custom styles. So what I'm going to do is when I save this Fullwidth slider to the library, I'm going to selectively sync only the advanced design settings. I'm going to make it global. I'm going to call it global slider, and I'm going to save it to the library. As you can see, this will turn green to signify that it is a global module. And if you open this up, you're going to see that only the advanced design settings tab is green. That's our way of telling you that that is the only tab that's being synced between these, this series of global modules. So I can edit the general settings, I can edit the custom CSS, and it won't affect the rest of the modules, the rest of the global modules, the rest of the instances of this particular global module. And as you can see, all those settings that I customized here are saved in the Advanced Design Settings tab. And so just as an experiment to show you how this works, I'm going to duplicate the slider. And so now I have two instances of the same exact global module. But since I've only synced the advanced design settings, those are the only things that are being shared between these two modules. So if I were to open up this slider and change the setting to hide arrows instead of show arrows, for example, and save and exit, if I open up this slider, that setting hasn't been changed. That's because this general settings tab is not being synced between these global modules. Only the advanced settings are. If I go over to the advanced settings, on the other hand, and I change this to 400 instead of 200 and save, well, now when I open up this global module and head over to those advanced design settings, you can see that's been updated. So this is an incredibly powerful concept. You have two global modules sharing the same advanced styles, but having unique general settings, unique content. And so now I can add this same global module to different pages. And then once I have, let's say, a series of 20 pages with all these unique sliders at the top, if I ever want to change the styles shared by all those sliders, I just have to go into the advanced settings of one of those global modules, make a change, and then instantly all my pages get updated. It saves you a ton of time. It's really cool. So that's a basic overview of using selective sync when saving items to your Divi library. And like I said, this application can be used for a lot of different reasons, not just sliders. You could have headers that are duplicated across your site. For example, you might have a footer, with a call to action module that is synced across your entire site. And you might want to have, these modules share their design settings. You might want to have certain modules share just CSS settings. For example, perhaps you've created a series of Blurb modules across your site, all with different content, different advanced design settings, but you've applied a custom CSS animation using the CSS tab, and you want to be able to change this animation across your entire site with one click. Well, that's a perfect example of why you might use Selective Sync in combination with global modules. In this tutorial, I'm going to give you an overview of the post title and full width post title modules. Now what this module does is automatically grab the post title or page title, the metadata, as well as the featured image from your post, and then displays it in a nice fashion which can be customized. So this is particularly useful for posts in a blog, for example, where you're using the page builder. And so I'm going to show you kind of how this can be used on a post. So here I have a standard post. It's not using the page builder, just using the standard WordPress editor. And I have a post here. The title, it's called Hello World. It's by admin, it's uncategorized, so all my metadata is here. And then I have this featured image that I've assigned using the standard featured image function in posts and pages in WordPress. So I'm going to edit this post, and instead of using the default editor, I'm going to use the Divi builder and then show you how the post title module can be used to kind of create unique looking posts. So I'm going to click Use the Divi Builder, and I'm going to insert a post title module. Well, first I'm just going to load a layout. So let's just pretend I've written a long post, a really cool long post. I'm just going to load in this pre-made layout here. Okay, so I have my post built, and this is what kind of a standard post with a standard title will look like. So I'm going to go over to my Divi page builder post with my header and layout. And so you can see here's the page builder content, and then here's the title and metadata and the featured image placed on top of it. But what the post title module does is it kind of gives you control over this aspect. So what I can do is head on back to here, and over on the right here under the Divi post settings, I can turn off the post title and instead create my own using the post title module. So first I'm going to remove the post title and show you what that does. So I'm going to head back over here, and when I refresh, you'll see that all this information here has been removed, and I just have the layout that I built with the Divi builder. Taking that one step further, I can also remove the sidebar by choosing the full width page layout. And so now I'm kind of turning this post into kind of like a more standard Divi layout and giving us a lot of freedom over the content of the post. But it is a blog post after all, and I want to have my blog post title and all the standard blog post information at the top here, not this page builder content. And I want it to dynamically update. So let's say I change my title one day. I want that to be reflected in the post title module, and that's what the post title module does so well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this slider, and instead I'm going to insert the full width post title. And I'm going to go over the settings here. So first up is show title. You can turn the title on and off. You can turn the meta on and off, which is your the blog author name, the post date, the category, and the comment count. And then you can kind of drill down and actually turn each of those things on and off. So you can disable the author and the date. You can adjust the date format. So by default, it's right here, this format here. But you can change that, and you might want to look up some more information about date formats. I'm not going to go over all that right now, but you can kind of adjust the date format by using the standard date format method there. Next up is show post categories. You can disable the comment counts. This is all the metadata that shows up in the below the post title. So you can turn all that stuff on and off individually. Next up is the featured image. You can choose to enable or disable the featured image. You can choose where to place your featured image. So you can put it below the title or above the title, or even use it as a background image for the module. And then you can choose your text orientation and color. You can apply a background color to the text, which is particularly useful when you're placing it over your featured image as a background image. And then you can apply your admin label, CSS ID, and class. So I basically haven't customized anything. I'm just going to show you what it looks like standard. And it's just going to look kind of like your normal post title, like a normal blog post title that you see on a standard Divi post. And so in its most basic form, it kind of adds that that information in kind of the way you've become accustomed to. But we can modify that quite a bit. So I'm going to go back to the post title module. And instead of having the text be placed below, the featured image being placed below the title, I'm going to make it a background image. I'm going to use a parallax effect. And I'm going to change my text orientation to center, the text color to light, and I'm going to apply a background color of purple. And let's save it and see what that looks like. So if we update the page and head back over to the post, once it loads, so you can see this post title module has completely changed. Now the text is being centered. It's got a background color. The text is white. And all this information is being taken from the post content. So if I went back here, oops, wrong page, went back here and said, change the title. That title is going to be reflected automatically within the post title module. As you can see, it changes there. And if I were to change my featured image to something else, that would work as well. So once the page loads, I can refresh this page, and you can see that the background image has changed along with the post title. So yeah, this is like just a way to customize the post title on your post. And so if you're using the Divi page builder for posts, and you kind of want to give all of your posts this unique standard look, you can kind of use the same post title with the same post title module on all your posts. And this will work well with a sidebar as well. So if I go back to right sidebar format and refresh, the post title module works there as well. So yeah, that's a basic overview of the post title module. Now, I gave you an example of using it in a blog post, but this really can be used anywhere. It can be used for your pages as well. It can be used for projects. For example, let's say you have a series of projects in your portfolio, and you kind of want to standardize the post title. You can just, save, this post title to your library, and then add it to all of your projects, and then you don't have to bother kind of inputting the post information and the featured image and stuff. That's going to get grabbed automatically from the post itself. And that's a basic overview of the post title module in Divi. In this tutorial, I'm going to give you a basic overview of the Divi theme customizer and module customizers. What these are a set of design controls that you can use to customize just about every aspect of your website and individual modules as well. And I'm going to give you a basic overview of how this customizer works. And if you want any more information about individual settings, we have more detailed tutorials that go into each panel in the customizer, so be sure to check those out. I'm not going to go over every single setting in this tutorial, since there's actually hundreds of settings available. So I'm just going to show you how to use it, and then you can kind of explore for yourself. Most of the settings are pretty self-explanatory. So to access the theme customizer, head over to your WordPress dashboard, and then find the Divi link, and then click on the theme customizer. Like I said, there's two customizers. There's the theme customizer and then the module customizer. What we did is we actually split up the customizer into two sections, and the module customizer is dedicated to customizing the appearance of individual modules, while the theme customizer kind of affects your entire website. So we're going to take a look at the theme customizer first. And when you load this up, you can see the settings are broken into various sections here, and these are all panels general settings, header navigation, footer, buttons, blog, and mobile styles. And you can open up all of these to reveal additional tabs with all of the settings that you can use. So I'm going to go through each of these very briefly and just to give you an idea of how you can use the customizer. So I'm going to go over to our general settings, and the first tab here is the layout settings, and you can do things here like enable boxed layout. You can adjust your website content width. You can adjust the gutter width, which is the distance between all of your columns. You can make that larger or smaller. You can adjust your section height. So if you want to make sections a little bit bigger or smaller, maybe you want to reduce the padding between all of your sections, you can do that. And you can adjust the height of rows as well. Now, if you ever kind of get lost in all the customizations you've made, you might want to go back to how they were before, and you don't remember where the setting was originally, you can click this reset button, and it'll reset it back to the original value. So there's some basic layout settings. We have typography settings as well. And you'll find typography settings kind of mixed all around the customizer, whether you're editing the footer or the header, or you're in the general settings here. A lot of these typography settings are shared. And they all work the same way. There's text size options, text styling options, and color options, and then font options. So you can adjust the text size. For example, the body text, you can make it bigger or smaller. And you can just drag the slider and kind of get an idea where you want it to be. You can adjust the line height as well. You can adjust the header text size, letter spacing between the header letters, and you can adjust font styles as well. So let me start over. For example, here's a fun way to kind of combine these settings. I might make my header font bold, make it all caps, reduce the text size a little bit, and then add some letter spacing. And just with a few clicks, we've kind of really changed the look and feel of our site. You can also choose between dozens of fonts here to use for your header and body, and you can adjust the colors as well. We have a background tab here where you can add a background image or background color, and that's all a basic overview of the general settings. So once, if you ever want to get back to the main customizer, you click this arrow here, and you can kind of delve into the other panels. So I'm going to go over to header and navigation next, and there's lots of settings here. Like I said, we have a tutorial dedicated just to header settings, because there's a lot you can do, especially when you start combining the settings here to create some really cool effects. I'm just going to give you a basic overview. There's a header format box, which kind of adjusts the overall layout of the header. You can switch between vertical navigation and horizontal navigation. You can choose to hide your navigation until the user scrolls. And you can choose between different header styles. So we have centered inline logo, and we have the default layout. And then we have vertical navigation, as I said, which places the navigation on the left, or you can go back to kind of the standard horizontal one. Next, you can customize the primary menu bar, which is the bigger white menu bar here that contains your logo. You can adjust the text sizes. So if I wanted to kind of change these text sizes to match our headers that we just changed earlier, I might make them bold, all caps, increase the letter spacing a bit, and there that kind of matches the changes we made earlier. And going a bit further, you can change the background color. So I could change this to purple, let's say. And then I might change my links to white so that they show up a little bit better. And there you can see just from a few clicks, you've really changed kind of the appearance and the style of this header. Now you can do the same kind of stuff for the secondary menu bar, which is the bar that appears above the header. And if you don't see a secondary navigation bar on your site, that just means you haven't added a menu yet. And so until you add a secondary menu to your site, this bar is probably not going to show up because there's no content to put in it. And you can adjust the background color and text sizes and all that good stuff, just like you can do for the primary navigation bar. Finally, we have the fixed navigation. Now what this is the navigation bar when it's in its fixed state as you scroll. So you'll notice as you scroll down, the header gets fixed to the top of the screen here, and we call that the fixed header when it kind of sticks to the top. And you can adjust the styles for that independently. For example, I might make it a little bit smaller if I want to give it more room. So if I scroll up, it goes back to its normal state, and I scroll down, it gets smaller. So I've adjusted the fixed menu height kind of independently there. I can adjust the background color. Let's say I want to make it blue instead of purple. Maybe I want to change my mind, make it a little bigger. You can even make it transparent, which is kind of nice. So if you have like a large fixed menu, you might make the background color transparent so you can kind of see what's behind it a little bit, like that. Yes, there's lots you can do here, kind of customizing the fixed navigation independently of your primary non-fixed navigation. And then moving on, there's various header elements you can enable or disable. You can enable or disable the search icon, the social icons, and also add a phone number and email address if you so desire. Next up, we have our footer settings. So you can adjust the footer appearance just like you can the rest of the site. So we have a lot of the similar settings here. If you delve into the widgets area, you can adjust the widget text size, the styles, all this stuff. There's a lot you can do. You can change their colors, change the background color, and so on. There's various elements you can enable in the footer, such as your social icons. You can adjust the styles for the menu that appears down here. And you can adjust the style of like the bottom bar, which has your social icons. You might want to make this a different color, for instance. And then you could adjust, the font style, icon size, text color. Now we made it green, probably want to make it white instead. Social icon color. And you can see with just a few clicks, we've really changed the look of the footer. And the next up is the button styles, and there's really no limit to what you can do with our button options. So I'm going to open up the button style. Now they're separated into two different tabs here. You have your button styles and your button hover styles. The hover styles is what you see when your mouse hovers over the button. So you can adjust kind of the text size, which will make your button a lot bigger. You can adjust the text color and the background color, like maybe I want to make this a green button instead of white. You could adjust the border width. Maybe want to take away the border completely. You can do the border radius, which will adjust the corners, and if you drag it far enough, it'll become like a circular button, as you can see. And you can do the font styles like you can everywhere else. You can choose a different text if you want. A different font, I mean, sorry. And you can adjust the icon color, icon placement, and all that. And where it really gets interesting is where you combine this with the hover styles. So for example, let's say I want to make this turn red when you hover over it. Well, you just have to change the background color to red, and you'll get a nice animation there from green to red. And then you can adjust, the letter spacing. Maybe you want your button to get a little bigger, like that when you hover over it. You can add a border to it. Border color, have the border color fade during the transition. Even adjust the border radius differently. So maybe I want to make this square. You can go from circle to square, which is a little crazy, but maybe if you use it in moderation, it could be cool. Maybe you want to just make it a little bit less rounded, like this. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with buttons. So I encourage you to explore that, or take a look at our button tutorial, which goes into more detail. We have various blog options, so you can adjust all the fonts, for your blog posts, such as your header and the metadata and all that. You know how that works. I'm not going to go into that. And the final thing I want to touch on here is the mobile styles. So what's cool about the Divi theme customizer is that you can adjust mobile styles independently from your desktop styles. And it's going to give you a nice preview here too. So let's say you've adjusted your header size and your body font size for desktop, but it's just like looking a little bit too big for you on mobile. You want to tone it down on mobile a little bit. Well, that's fine. You can head over to the phone section here and just adjust the body font size. You can make it a little smaller if you want, or bigger. In fact, you probably want to make it a little bit bigger so it's more readable. And you can do the same for tablet, and you can adjust those independently. And you can also adjust your mobile menu, the navigation bar. So those menu settings we were adjusting earlier, where I talked about the primary menu settings, the fixed menu settings. Well, you also have mobile menu settings, because when you go down to tablet size, the mobile menu changes a bit. And so we let you customize that independently of the desktop menu. And when you're all done, you can just head back out here, and then you're going to get that desktop view returned. So yeah, that's a basic overview of the theme customizer, and there's just so much you can do here. So I really suggest you play around with all the settings. And if you want more information about particular areas of the theme customizer, be sure to check out those tutorials. Now, in addition to the theme customizer, Divi also comes with a module customizer. Now, we've separated these two customizers into two different areas, and the theme customizer, like I mentioned earlier, focuses on adjusting kind of elements that affect your entire website, while the module customizer kind of drills down and focuses on individual modules. So if you ever want to change something about the appearance of a certain module across your entire site, well, then you should head over to the module customizer by going to the Divi link here and then clicking on the module customizer link. Now this will launch a new customizer window, and you'll see on the left here we have a new set of options, which is a list of all the Divi modules. If there's something you want to change about a particular module, well, then you can do it here. For example, let's say that I'm bothered by the size of the full width sliders. I want to make them a little bit smaller. I think, it's just they're taking up too much room. Well, that's easy to do in the module customizer. Just go over to the full width slider panel and then adjust the top and bottom padding values. So I can just bring that down, shrink the slider. Now, whenever I add a new slider to my site, it's going to be a little bit smaller like this. And in addition, you can adjust all the font sizes like you can do everywhere else, and the font styles. I could, make it all caps, make it bold, make it bigger, make it smaller. You can do that all here in the module customizer, and you can do it for any of the modules that Divi comes with. So if I want to adjust these counters, for example, go over to the number counter, adjust the font styles, make them bold and italic and underlined, and you get a live preview of those changes here. And when you're done, just click Save and Publish. Yep, so that's a basic overview of the theme customizer and the module customizer. And if you'd like more information about individual settings, we have some tutorials focused on individual sections of the customizer, such as customizing your menu, customizing buttons, and so on. And yep, that's a basic overview of the Divi theme and module customizers. In this tutorial, I'm going to be walking you through the theme customizer, but in particular I'm going to be focusing on the button styles that we have for you in the Divi theme customizer. And these button styles affect all the buttons on your site. And here's an example of a button right here that appears in the slider. And so you can adjust just about everything about these buttons. And there's so many options that the effects you can achieve are quite varied. And so that's why I'm going to kind of go over each option and kind of show you some different cool combinations that you can use. So the first thing you're going to want to do is head over to your theme customizer by going to the dashboard, looking for the Divi link in your sidebar, and then clicking on the theme customizer to launch the customizer. And once it loads up, you're going to want to look for the buttons tab on the left here. And so click on buttons, and this is going to bring you to the button section in the theme customizer. And we've separated these settings into two areas. There's the general button style and then the button hover style. So the button style is what you see all the time here, and the hover style is what you see when you hover it over with your mouse. And whenever two settings differ between the button style and the hover button style, well, there's that difference is going to transition, creating a nice animation effect. And so let's just go through each of these settings so I can give you an idea what to do. The text size will increase the text size, but also increase the button size as a whole. So if you want to make your buttons larger, this is the setting you want to adjust. So you can make your buttons quite large. You can adjust the text colors if you want to make it something else like red or yellow or whatever. And you can adjust the background color as well. So I could perhaps make this button green instead of transparent. And I want to bring up the alpha transparency here to full. And then obviously this yellow that I chose earlier is clashing pretty heavily, so I'm going to turn that back to white. And so now I have a green button with white text. You can adjust the border color, so maybe you want to make this like a darker green or something like that, or a lighter green. You could do that and then increase the border size as well. So now we're getting a completely different look for our button. And you can just remove this border as well. So sometimes I like to just remove the border altogether, bring down the border width to 0, and kind of keep a cleaner, flatter look. You can adjust the border radius, and what this does is adjust the roundness of the corner. So if you want to make a square button, you can bring that border radius down to 0, and you can make it more and more circular, all the way to the point where the edges become half circles like that. So if you want to create a circle button, just slide that border radius all the way to the right. Next up is our letter spacing. So we'll adjust the spacing between the letters. So the bigger the spacing, the bigger the button gets. And then you have your button style, font style options, which includes bold, italic, uppercase, and underlined. And so you can toggle all those off individually, on and off individually. I tend to like the combination of bold and all caps with a little bit of letter spacing like that, which looks nice. You can also change the fonts if you want to get a little more creative with your font. By default we use Open Sans, but there's a lot of great fonts here to choose from. So if you want your button to kind of stand out, maybe draw people's eye a little bit more, you might want to use a font that differs from the body font of your site. So I changed to Arvo. Next, you can choose whether or not you want to use an icon. So if you don't want to have an icon, you can go ahead and turn that off, and then you won't get that hover effect with the icon. If you do choose to use an icon, you can choose the icon itself. So by default, we have that arrow, but if you want to use anything else, you're free to do so. So you can see the icon has changed, and you can choose between all of our icons, which Divi comes with our own elegant icon font that we created just for Divi. So we have a bunch of great icons here that you can choose from. You can also adjust the icon color independently of your fonts. If you want to make this something else, you can. Maybe I want to make it like a dark green and keep my text white. That's kind of a nice effect. And you can choose the direction of your icon too, whether it be on the left or the right. So if you want to make it on the left, you can. If you have kind of like a more symbolic icon here, like here I have this light bulb, kind of makes more sense to have it on the left, whereas arrows kind of work more on the right because they're more directional. And depending on the arrow you choose too, like if you have an arrow pointing to the left, well, you might want to put it on the right of the text. Like this arrow here makes a little bit more sense over there than it would on the right side. I'm going to change back to something else. Okay, you can also choose whether or not to show the icon only on hover or have it always appear. So if you choose no here, the icon's just going to be there all the time. And if you only show it on hover, then it's only going to appear when you hover over it. Now, where stuff gets really fun is when you start adjusting the button hover styles. So if you open the button hover styles panel, here's where you can change things for when someone hovers over the button with their mouse. And like I said, when something differs, you get a nice transition. For example, if I want to make the background color change, I could maybe change this to yellow. And then when I hover over it, it's going to fade to yellow from green. You can adjust the border color as well if I had a border, but I don't. And you can adjust the border radius independently as well. For example, putting it down to 0 would mean it transitions from square to circle. And the letter spacing, you can do some crazy stuff with the letter spacing if you want to like make your button grow. It's kind of fun. And you can use alpha transparency here. So like all of our color settings come with an alpha transparency slider if you want to make it transparent. So maybe the hover style is like a clear, black color like that. That looks cool. Yeah, so there's lots of stuff you can do when you start playing with these different settings, and you can really give your site a unique look. And yep, that's a basic overview of the button customizer settings in Divi. In this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the Divi theme customizer with a focus on the general settings and general typography and layout settings. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with the typography settings and the layout settings in the theme customizer to make kind of like large sweeping changes to your entire site, such as changing your fonts and font sizes and colors and all that stuff. And it'll really save you a lot of time using the customizer as opposed to, creating a child theme and so on. So to activate the theme customizer, you're going to want to head over to your dashboard, look for the Divi link, and then hover over it and click on the theme customizer link. This will launch the theme customizer with all the different settings. And we're going to be focusing on the general settings in this tutorial, but I also have tutorials for all the other areas here, so be sure to check those out if you want additional information. So I'm going to open up the General Settings tab, and it's going to give me the various settings available here, categorized into 3 different sections: layout settings, typography, and background. Now, layout settings, you can do a lot here, and most of this stuff is related to kind of sizing and spacing of your layout. So you can enable box layout, which will change the kind of look of your site completely and place it in this box. And you can adjust the content width as well, so you can make your box bigger or smaller. In this case, I need to extend my screen so you can actually see this. But yeah, you can adjust your website content width, so I can make it bigger and smaller with that slider there. Moving on, we have the gutter width, which will affect the space between columns. So if you want to increase or decrease the space between the columns in your rows, you can do that with the gutter width. And so I can bring those down or move them up a bit like that. And if at any time you want to reset, back to the standard setting, you can just click the reset button right there. Sidebar width, this will adjust the width of your sidebar on your blog posts and category pages. Section height, this will adjust the height between sections, so the padding that exists at the top and the bottom of each section, you can kind of make that bigger or smaller. We have a few different sizes here that you can choose from. So if you think there's too much space between my sections, I want to make it a little smaller, just go ahead and bring those down a bit here. And we also have the same exact control for row height. So I'm sure you're familiar with sections and rows, but there's a default spacing, just between each row and between each section that kind of separates the modules within those. And if you want to adjust that, you're free to do so. So here you can see kind of the 2 rows here. I have this row with an image and the row with a text module, and I'm decreasing the spacing between those rows. Next is your theme accent color, which is kind of your general the general color you like to associate with your design, and it kind of gets applied in various areas like your header and active menu links and that kind of stuff. So you want to change your accent color, you can do that here. The next section is typography. So there's a lot you can do here, such as adjusting your header fonts and body fonts, the sizes of the text, their colors, the letter spacing, line spacing, and so on. So with just a few clicks here, you can really give your site a completely different look and feel. So for one, if you want to increase the text size, make it a little bit readable, just slide the slider here, and all the text in your site is going to scale up and down proportionally. And you can do the same thing with your header text size. So if you want to make all your headers a little bit bigger, just slide that slider up and down until you kind of have a size you feel comfortable with. You have line height as well, so you can kind of increase and decrease the spacing between paragraphs, lines in paragraphs, I should say. You can also adjust the letter spacing between your headers. So if you want to add a little bit more space between the letters, sometimes it's nice to do in headers to kind of give it a different kind of layer of hierarchy. It just separates it from the body a little bit more because it looks different. So we can maybe bring down the text size and then increase the letter spacing, which as you see will increase the spacing between the letters. And this kind of looks nice sometimes when you combine it with making it all caps and bold, and then bringing down the text size a little bit, kind of getting a nice unique look there. Now you can adjust the font as well. So if you want to completely change the font for your headers versus your body text, by default we use Open Sans, but if you want to change that to something else, you can. And that's really going to kind of change the attitude of your site quite drastically. Next we have some color options. You can change the colors of your links and your text. If you want to change your header font colors to something different, just head on down to the header text color option, You can play with different colors here, or choose your own. And you do the same for body text as well. Some people think that, you know, this gray might be a little bit too light for them, in which case you might want to just bring it down to like a darker, you know, something closer to black. It's up to you. So that, yeah, it's a basic overview of the typography settings and the layout settings, which is kind of the biggest part of this general settings tab. And the next is the background section. So you can upload your own background image here or adjust the background color. And this really only kind of matters if you're using the boxed layout. Otherwise, there's kind of like your site is dominated by the background colors of your sections. But once you enable boxed layout, as I will here, you can see there's kind of some space behind the box for your background image and background color to show through. So if I were to change that, you can see it update in the background there. Yep, so that's a basic overview of the the general settings, including the layout settings and typography settings for Divi, included in the Divi theme customizer. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you the Divi Advanced Design settings and custom CSS settings that are available for all modules, rows, and sections built with the Divi Builder. So, to make things a little more clear, let's dive into the Divi Builder so I can show you what I'm talking about. Here's a page that I built with Divi. I'm going to edit the page and bring up the Divi Builder so we can dive into some of these settings. So, whenever you edit a module or add a new module, for example, here's a Blurb module, so I'm going to click the settings icon to bring up the settings. You're going to be greeted with 3 tabs: General Settings, Advanced Design Settings, and Custom CSS Settings. Now, our general philosophy is that everything you need to use the Divi module and to use it well is in the General Settings. But if you'd like a little more control, and you really want to put some work into customizing the module, you can use the Advanced Design Settings, which have just about everything you could ever need to customize the appearance of that module. Anything you can do with CSS, you can pretty much do with the Advanced Design Settings. That being said, if you'd rather not use our custom controls that we have here in the Advanced Design Settings tab, well, then you can use the Custom CSS tab instead and just type in your own CSS if you happen to be a web developer. Now, in the Custom CSS tab, we break down all the different elements of the module. So, for example, the Blurb module here, you can apply a CSS to the main, div. You can create a pseudo element after the div. You can, apply a CSS to the Blurb image, the Blurb title, the Blurb content, all individually. And you can do it all for the individual module on the individual page. And that saves you a lot of time if you're, had to customize the appearance of one module on one page and you don't want to create a whole child theme just to do that. This is a whole lot easier and easier to manage as well. So, let's start off by taking a look at the advanced design settings. And to do that, first I'm going to take another look at our page so we can see kind of our starting point. And then I'm going to dive into the advanced design settings, kind of go over what each of them do, and also how to use them together to create some kind of unique effects. So here's our 2 rows of blurbs, just standard blurbs, not customized, the design that is. And so let's open up the advanced design settings for our first blurb and take a look at what we have. Now, the advanced design settings are going to be different for every single module because there's different elements in each module, but generally the same types of options are available for all modules. So you're going to see, width options, sizing options. You're going to see a slew of options for text, including, header font size, font styles, letter spacing, line height, background colors, custom fonts, all the kind of stuff that you'd ever want to change is going to be available. But different collections of those types of settings are going to be available with each different module. So in this Blurb module in particular, we have a good collection of settings here. So I'm just going to go through one by one, kind of explain what they do. And then you can kind of like extrapolate that and how they would apply to other modules as well. But first we have an image max width. So this module happens to have an image in it. If you so choose to upload one, And if you'd like to give that image a max width, you can apply it here. So if for whatever reason, you let's say you create a blurb and you put a pretty large image in there, and you like the way it looks in a 1/2 column, but then as the site breaks down to mobile and everything kind of gets forced into one column, you don't like how big that image gets, and so you want to apply a max width to it. In which case you just say, type in a max width here, and then the image will never get bigger than that. Next up is the use icon font size. So you can choose to apply a custom icon font size to the icon in your blurb. You can adjust the header font, so you can choose from dozens of Google fonts here to apply to the header within the blurb. And you can adjust the font styles as well, making them bold or italic. And if at any time you want to reset back to default, just click this reset icon and it's going to wipe all the settings. And you can also wipe the whole design settings tab by clicking this reset button up here. And that's just going to clear everything out. So if you've kind of made a mess of things and you want a clean slate, just go up here and click that reset button, and then you can start from scratch. So we also have a header font size. You can adjust the size of the title in your blurb. You can adjust the color of the header font. You can adjust the letter spacing, so the spacing between each letter in the header. You can adjust the line height. And you can do all those things for the body font as well. Adjust the font, style, size, color, spacing, and line height. Finally, we have a background color. So this can apply a background color to the blurb. You can apply a background image. You can choose to put a border around it. And you can add custom margin and padding. And so let's kind of play with a little bit of these settings. So I'm going to increase the font size a bit. And I'm going to make it bold, and I'm going to change the actual font to a different font. And I'm going to change the icon size a bit as well. Let's make it a little larger. And maybe increase the letter spacing slightly. And then under my general settings, I'm going to change this up a little bit. I'm going to put the icon on top. And I'm going to make the text orientation center and save. So we've kind of played with some advanced design settings there, kind of increasing the sizes of the color of the fonts as well as the font itself. So you can see we've already changed this blurb quite a bit by making this text bold, by making it a little bit larger, and changing the font. So let's take it a bit further. Let's go back to the advanced design settings. And this time I'm going to try applying a background color. So I'm going to put a background color on this blurb, which usually has no background color. So this is a good example where you can really completely change kind of what a module can be used for. So blurbs have never had background colors before. There's no background color in the general settings. This is something only available in the advanced design settings. And the reason we separate some of these things is because we want to make it clear that once you enter the advanced design settings, then you kind of, I guess the good way to say it is great power comes with great responsibility. You have a lot of power here, but you also have a lot of power to mess up kind of the design. So you need to, adjust these things with care, I would say. So, and this is a good example of kind of when you need to think about your choice. So here's a blurb where you have no background color, and now we're going to apply a background color to it. And so that choice is going to have a few consequences that we're going to have to adjust other settings to kind of go along with that choice. So first of all, we've added a background color. It's made our text not visible, which means we're also going to need to go into those advanced design settings and make this text a different color, the blurb icon as well. And another thing I don't really like is that there's no space between the edge of this module, the box, and the content within it. But luckily, all these things you can control in the advanced design settings. So that's the beauty of these settings. There's really nothing you can't do. And so that's exactly what I am going to do. I'm going to change the color of the title. I'm going to change it to white so it looks great on top of that purple. And then I'm going to change the body color as well to white. And then I'm going to add some padding. So I want to put some space between the edge of the box and the content within it. And to do that, I'm just going to add some custom padding value here in pixels. And then I'm going to change the icon color to white. And with just a few simple clicks, we are going to completely transform this blurb into something entirely different. So it's become this block element. We've added padding around the edges so that there's room for this text to breathe inside of the block. We've changed the color to white, which shows up much better on top of the purple, and really just created a kind of a whole new element out of this blurb using those advanced design settings. And so that's an example of how you can use the advanced design settings to really give your website a completely different look than you'd ever than like was ever possible before we introduced these settings. So in this case, I might want to delete my other blurbs, duplicate this one. In fact, as I looked at that, I kind of want to reduce the padding a bit. It was a little bit tight on the inside, so let's change this to 70 pixels instead of 100. Then I'm going to duplicate this, put it on each side. And then I'm going to change the color of the background for each of these. So instead of using purple, I'm going to change this one to blue. And then I'm going to change this one to maybe more of a red. There we go, it looks nice. And I'm going to update this. Refresh. And there we go. We created 3 blurbs and completely kind of transformed the idea of the blurb into this boxed element with varying background colors, and it's really looking really cool. And so that's a few examples of using the advanced design settings. Now, next I'd like to delve into the custom CSS, which is the next box there. Like I said, this is if you happen to be a web developer that has familiarity with CSS, and you can code yourself. Well, you might actually find it faster to just code those changes yourself instead of using the advanced design settings. So there's lots of stuff you can do there. For example, I might want to adjust the font size of the blurb title myself with CSS, in which case I wouldn't need to use these settings. I could come in here, go to the custom CSS, find the blurb title, and just type in some CSS. I might do font size 40 pixels, and then maybe do some letter spacing as well. Wait for it to load, and then I'm going to refresh and take a look at our changes. As you can see, my custom CSS has taken effect. It's made the text bigger and the letter spacing bigger. So what's so great about this is you can target custom CSS just to individual elements on the page and even on individual modules. When before, with any other theme or with the Divi prior to Divi 2.4, you would have to create a whole child theme just to add the CSS, and you'd also have to add that CSS to every single page in your site, because even though you're using it only on one page, that style sheet's loaded everywhere. So the custom CSS settings give you so much control. And when combined with the Divi library, these settings become even more powerful. So now that I've created this custom kind of look and a custom unit of blurbs and spent a lot of time doing that, this is the perfect opportunity for me to save this whole row to the library, and then later on down the road, if I ever want to kind of achieve this look again, there's no reason for me to apply all those settings and kind of start from scratch. I can just load that from the library. So let me do that. I'm going to open up this row. I'm going to save it to the library. I'm going to call it blurbs made of blocks, so I can remember it. And I'm going to save that. And now if I ever want to use that again, I can click Add from Library and find that blurbs made of blocks and add it. And I'm all ready to go. So you can see that these blurbs have been duplicated now. Yep, so that's a basic overview of the advanced design settings and CSS settings and just how they differ from the general settings. Like I said, generally everything you need to achieve awesome Divi layouts is already in the general settings, but if you want to kind of put in the time and really go above and beyond and make some really interesting, unique layouts, for yourself or for your clients, then you can, delve into the advanced design settings and even the custom CSS settings. And I think when you start doing that, and even combining it with the library, as I've just shown you, you're just going to save yourself so much time, and you're going to be developing these sites for your clients so much faster. And yeah, that's a basic overview of the advanced design settings.